Hello there, CG Man with you, and I just finished making some hair for a character, and at the tail end of that process I discovered a new trick, and gosh, I wish I'd figured it out sooner because it would have saved me a lot of time. As you may be aware, or may not be aware, fiber effects in Modeler is a thing, and it's pretty cool. Lets you draw guides, and it grows hair that follows along those guides, but it it does have some issues. The guides tend to stray, and you usually have to do some cleanup after the fact. But this is a technique that I've discovered that does not require cleanup. It gives total control and will save you a lot of time, I think, making hair. So basically I'm modeling a patch of hair, and you can use this for any kind of hair segment, but in this case I'm going to use it to make some hair that is like going into a specific area, like into a bun or something like that. So this is where the hair would all lead into a certain point. So this is where this technique has a distinct advantage over fiber effects because it does not require the same amount of, or any amount of cleanup to get the hair to follow your will. So here's a basic shape that I've modeled. Sorry, that's good enough. So this side down here is where it would be attached to the scalp, and over here is the destination where it would go into a bun or a braid or something like that. And I'm going to subdivide it. And I didn't try this last time. I'm going to try this now. I'm going to select these four corners and go to subpatch weight. That way it sharpens those corners instead of them coming out rounded. So I think that might help. So next thing I want to do, I already did this before, but hit your O key for options and change your subpatch divisions to a high number, like 7, I guess. And then go to refine. Well, your menu may not be the same as mine. I'm going to freeze curves and patches. There we go. Yeah, I think those curves, maybe 100% a little too much, but that helped. Now, I'm going to copy this like so. Actually, I didn't need to do that. I want to do it a different way. Edge mode. Select all those edges like that. Don't need those. I'm going to hit F11. For me, that means select loop. And make sure we deselect this loop down here. And this one here. Yeah, sharpening up those corners definitely helped in this area. Okay. So I'm in edge mode. I've selected all the edges going in the direction of the hair. I'm going to copy, go to a different layer, and paste. And what that did is that created 2-point polygon chains. Now that may or may not work for you if you don't have the latest version of Lightwave. I have version 11, so it works for me. If not, there are third-party plugins that does just this thing, so you can look that up. But if you got a latest or a new version, recent version, you don't have to worry about that. And while I'm here, I guess I'll select these points down here, make my roots. because as you may know, you need to select the first points, make 1-point polygons, surface, we'll call that root, invert selection, hair. Okay, this guy is ready for Sasquatch. I use Sasquatch, I don't use the other one, but you can use it for either one. Anyway, let's bring this over here. I'm going to work on these side by side so you can see what's going on as I work with weights in weight shaded mode, because you don't get to see weights when you're working on polychains like that. Okay. First thing I'll do is I'm going to select this edge. I should have done this before I copied it over, but whatever. I guess I just had to do it manually. Okay, now I'm going to say new weight map. Wait a minute, I'm going to select connected a couple times, like that, and new weight map, we'll call this fixed, set the amount to 25, shrink selection, and set map value to 50, shrink selection 75, and the last one to 100. Okay, so basically whatever effect we're going to do, this will limit it only to the ends. And in my case, since this hair is going to be going into a bun, I also don't want the effect going into that. But you may only want to do it on one side where your roots are. So that's entirely up to you. You'll see what I'm talking about soon enough. All right. Next up is to go to lightwave3d.com. Go to Community, Plugins, and do a search on weight random. And random weights per connected is the one you want. It's very good. Get that, install that in Lightwave. If I can stop talking like Baba Wawa. And I put that right here. And so now, no, I don't want it to be, I want it in a new weight. I'll call this X, I guess. And I'm choosing the per points option instead, because there's another option where it can assign a single weight to every section of your model, but I want every single point to have a different value, a random value. And you can see that. Now the next thing to do, just to show you what's going on, I'm going to hit T for move, and I choose weight map for a fall off. So you can see if I move, it's obeying the weight map. But there's some things we got to do first to make it less gross. I'm going to go to blur weights, weight blur, and I'll choose iterations of 4. Now here it turns into soup, but because it's only blurring in the direction of the strand, because that's the only way it's connected, it's not so bad here. Now I'm going to use combined weights, which is another third-party plugin. You can also search on lightwave3d.com. And I'm going to take X and subtract fixed, and we'll call that X2. So you can see now it's only going to be happening in here. So now when I move, we get some nice organic deviations. So you can just move it in one direction or the other, and now it's no longer too perfect. So I'll do the same thing again, and we'll call this Y, and then weight blur, and then combine weights, take Y, subtract fixed for Y2, and we'll move like this way a little bit, using again the weight map as the fall off. So now we got deviations in two directions along the strand, which is every direction you need. So now this guy is perfect and ready to go for Sasquatch or FiberFX or whatever you want to use it for. There's one other step you can do, and that would be using this guy, even though we didn't really need to move this one along the length, using the, you could have just did it for this, but it was just for demonstration purposes. So this could have been, whoops, turn that off. We could have used that without the little deviation effect, but it doesn't really matter. And I'm going to now move along the normals, just kind of shrink it down, move it away from the hair. Okay, so now we got a little extra oomph to this, because if your hair is not thick enough to completely obscure the scalp below it, you can now pick this guy and assign a texture to it, or a surface color rather, that is the same as your darkest hair, or solid black, whatever you want to do. And it's a way of cheating volume of hair that isn't actually there, so that will save you some rendering time. So yeah, there you go. Since this entire section is not filled with hair, you're saving time with rendering, and you got total control along each end, or only on one end if you prefer, of your strands. Very easy forming of the shapes you need without having to do any cleanup after the fact that you might have to do with FiberFX. Okay, I brought this thing into Lightwave layout, and I wanted to show you something. This is specifically about Sasquatch. If you're using FiberFX, you're on your own, but this is another trick that I've used with this, and that is with my hair selected, go to edges and give it the negative size so that it renders it with some thickness, and because it does that, it casts a shadow. So what I do is I render two passes, one without the hair and then one hair only. That way I can use any kind of lights I want with the character and then change the lights to spotlights and render the hair. So that allows me to have the hair cast a shadow, basically, even though it's a cheat. Let's render this out. So you can see it's not great, but maybe if I made 2 layers of that, it would be a little more convincing. But yeah, you can see I have my object under here, the thing that fills it in, gives it more volume, because otherwise you would see through it the entire area. An interesting thing about this is this trick that gives you the thickness with the negatives polygon edge size right here. Sasquatch, when you are rendering with the spotlights, does not see that. So these edge thickened things will not interfere with the actual rendering of the fur. It will not cast shadows on the fur itself. Only for casting shadows. And of course, don't forget to tell it not to be seen by camera. So I separated this from the background thing that does the fake volume. You know, this thing is separate from this thing. So this is not seen by camera, but it does cast shadows unseen by camera. So the spotlight that I have rendering the fur does not see it, so that it does not cause ugly shadows inside the fur itself, but it does cast shadows on the background. I'm being redundant. So anyways, there's another trick you can use with Sasquatch. I think that's all there is to say about this. As you can see, it looks decent. And I guess I'll just bring this to a close. Have fun and take it easy.